Now last week, we looked at what variables were in equations. We substituted numbers into the equations for the variables to solve them. And then we also learned how to find what number a variable should be when our equations had addition and subtraction. We used the inverse operation. Okay? Now, we're going to do the same thing today, but instead of using addition and subtraction, we're going to be using multiplication and division. Okay? It's not that much more difficult, because I bet pretty quickly you'll be able to figure out what the inverse operation is. So on your paper, I want you to write A, okay? And I want you to go, let's see, 6 times P equals 24, okay? 6 times P equals 24. Okay. Now, our first step, you don't have to write this down, but our first step is to see what the variable is. Okay. So P is the variable. Step 2 is get the variable by itself. Get the variable by itself using the inverse operation. Now, before we do that, who can tell me what are we doing to the variable here? We're doing what? What are we doing to it? Josh.
You're multiplying it by 6.
I'm multiplying it by 6. What's the inverse operation of multiplication? What's the inverse operation of multiplication? Miss Coda. Division. So if I have multiplication, the inverse operation is division. Okay. So here's what I want to see here. I have 6 times P equals 24. What do I need to do to both sides of this equation? Think back when we did last week, and even before we started this lesson today. If we had, let's say, a 3 plus B equals 9, what do we have to do to both sides of the equation? Do you know?
Divide.
Divide by what? You're exactly right. I'm the divide.
6.
Oh my goodness, I didn't have to tell you, and that's exactly right. Divide by 6, because what are we doing to the variable? We're multiplying by 6. So we're going to divide by 6. So I'm going to put a line right here and a 6. Because remember, a fraction is just another way to divide. And then I'm going to put my line under here and put a 6 right here. Because remember, like our scale, I have to do the same thing to both sides. Now I have a question right here. What is 6 divided by 6? Emma? 1. And 1 times any number is what? It's just that number, isn't it? So it's the same thing as adding 0 or subtracting 0. So once we have that, we can basically, we could cross that out. I'm not going to, because it's the same thing as saying 1 times P. And we don't really need that 1 times P, do we? Because it just means that it's going to be P. Okay? What is 24 divided by 6? 4. Okay, and since 1 times P equals 4, that's the same as P equals 4. So look, P equals 4. Okay, and then guess what I'm going to do next? I'm going to check my answer. And remember, we do that by plugging in the original number. We take this p equals 4. We put the 4 back in for the p. 6 times 4 equals 24. Does 6 times 4 equal 24? It sure does, doesn't it? So we know our answer is correct. Okay. All right, I want you guys to come down here and write down B on your paper. We're doing problem B now. Okay. And I'm going to say, let's see. We'll say 18 equals n divided by 2. Write this on your paper just like this. Okay. Now, while some of you are still writing that, can someone raise their hand and tell me what is the variable of this problem? Taylor. N. We don't know what that number is yet, do we? Okay. And what are we doing to the variable? What operation are we doing to the variable? What are we doing to the variable?
Multiplication?
No. What does it say?
Division?
Division. So to solve it, we have to do the inverse operation. Who can tell me what I'm going to do to this side of the variable, or sorry, this side of the equation and this side of the equation? What am I going to do? Let's see.
Multiply.
I'm going to multiply. What am I going to multiply?
2.
By 2, so multiply by 2. Boom. And what am I going to do this side? Multiply by 2. Okay? So if I have a number and I divide it by 2, then I multiply it by 2, guess what it is?
2.
That's whatever that number is. Okay? Watch. If I have 4 divided by 2 and then times 2, 4 divided by 2 is what? 2. 2 times 2 is what? 4. See how it's the same number as it was before? I'll do it with 5. 5 divided by 5. I'll go 15. Divided by 3 times 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 5 times 3 equals 15. So if I have p divided by 2, then times 2, that just equals, or n, it just equals n. That's all it is n. Because you're doing the same thing, and then you're doing the opposite of it. It's like, remember, if I take 2 steps forward, then 2 steps backwards, I'm right where I was. So if I have n divided by 2 times 2, it just equals n, because we're doing the same, just like we did up here. What is, well, let's go ahead and do this. 8 times 2 is 16. Put my 1 up here. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3, and equals 36. So now I have to check my answer. Okay, so 36. I put that right in where the n's going to be. Okay, so 18 equals 36 divided by 2. Does 36 divided by 2 equal 18? Let me come over here and see. 36, 2. 2 can go into 3 one time. 1 times 2 is 2. I subtract and get 1. The 6 comes down. 2 goes into 16 8 times. 8 times 2 is 16. 0. So does 36 divided by 2 equal 18? Sure does. Is our answer check out? Is it okay? It sure is. All right. So just like with addition and subtraction, we just have to do the inverse operation. And the inverse operation of multiplication is division. The inverse operation of division is multiplication.